Okay, at the end of this chapter, I want you to make a wanted poster. We've done one before. I'd quite like you to make a wanted poster for either Wild Boy or Clarissa. Chapter 15, here we go. Wild Boy crouched beside the drain cover, ready to dive back into the sewer at the slightest hint of danger in the street. Somewhere close, a dog barked, glass broke, a woman screamed, and then silence, except for the sound of his filthy coat dripping onto the greasy cobbles. He reached to help Clarissa up from underground, but she swatted his hand away as she climbed from the drain. They'd been on the move for hours, hacking and retching through the stinking darkness. Only when they'd climbed a drain shaft and seen a sign for Tooley Street did they know they'd reached Southwark, where the hooded man's second victim had lived, Dr. Charles Ignatius Griffin. A thick brown cloud swept along the street. Wild Boy remembered fogs like this from when he'd lived at the workhouse. These sickly brews of coal smoke and factory fumes shrouded the riverbank nearly every night, bringing confusion and fear. But as the clouds swirled around them, Wild Boy and Clarissa grinned. Thanks to the fog, the streets were empty. For now. As they looked at each other, their smiles turned into laughs that echoed around the thick fumes. Partly they were relieved to have it made this far, but also they both looked so revolting. Brown slime dripped from Clarissa's hair. It was all over Wild Boy too, sliding down his coat and soaking the hair on his face and body. They looked like monsters risen from a swamp. "Over there," Clarissa said. She rushed to a horse trough and dunked her heads in the water, then tore off their coats, splashed their arms and rubbed their faces. Soaked through, Wild Boy shook himself like a dog, spraying mucky water over Clarissa. "Hey!" she cried. She grabbed the trough bucket, about to hurl more water over him, but she froze mid-swing. A curtain of fog parted long enough to see the wall behind the trough. It was covered with posters, each with the sound printed announcement. A £100 reward for the capture of the Wild Boy of London and the fiend Clarissa Everett. Clarissa dropped the bucket. "Fiend?" she said. "Is that like a ghost?" Wild Boy heard voices. Quickly he pulled Clarissa into an alley between two buildings. Slowly they dared to look. Through the fog they saw several men silhouetted against the jaundiced light of a street lamp, dressed identically in high-collared coats and stovepipe hats. At the base of the lamp was something ragged and black, like a crow. "Sir Oswald's cravat," Clarissa said. They'd agreed that Sir Oswald would go ahead and tie his cravat around the lamppost nearest to where Dr. Griffin had lived and worked. The house he'd signalled rose higher than those around it. 4 floors of brick and glass covered in so much soot and grime from nearby factory chimneys that its entire face seemed to drip with darkness. Wrought iron railings ran along the front, like prison bars guarding the ground floor windows. "Who are there people outside it?" Clarissa said. "Coppers," Wild Boy said, and cursed. They had to get inside that house. But before he could think what to do, Clarissa turned and ran off. A blur of red gold charging down the alley. "I've got a plan, follow me." Wild Boy chased after her, whispering for her to slow down, but she was in her element now. She swept along the back of the houses, backflipped over a fence and vaulted a wall. "Hurry up," she called. He caught up with her in a small yard surrounded by high walls. Brightly coloured handkerchiefs hung on a washing line, fluttering in the fog, and the voices of the policemen echoed down an alley that trailed along the side of a building. A shiver of excitement ran up Wild Boy's spine. This was Dr. Griffin's house. Clarissa was already at the back door, fiddling her picks in the lock. "It's bolted from the inside," she said. "This window's barred and all." Wild Boy moved closer, intrigued by the iron bars that protected the window. He ran a finger around the mortar where the metal met the window ledge. "These bars are new," he said. So the doctor was scared of something. But how did his killer get in?" Wild Boy stepped back and surveyed the building in the light of a spluttering gas lamp. A cloud of fog parted just enough for him to see the first floor window. It wasn't barred. "Can you get a beer?" he asked. "Course," Clarissa said. "I'm a circus star, remember?" She kicked off her boots, tied the laces together and slung them over her shoulder. Then she unhooked the washing line at both ends and threw that over her shoulder too. "I'll pull you up after," she said. In one lightning move, she sprang onto the top of an outhouse that stood against the wall. Then she shinnied up an iron drain pipe and stepped casually onto the first floor window ledge. "This window's locked from inside and all. I'll try higher." Reaching up, she began to climb the wall like a spider, her fingers and toes curled into the gaps between the bricks. Wild Boy watched in amazement. Sir Oswald had been right. It was useful to have an acrobat on his side. He saw that all of the fear had vanished from Clarissa's face and her eyes seemed to sparkle even in the fog. She looked happy. She glanced down and saw him watching. "What?" she said. "Nothing," Wild Boy replied, trying to sound unimpressed. "Hurry up, will ya?" A few moments later, she reached the second floor window, and then she disappeared into the swirling fog above. Behind Wild Boy, something moved. His heart lurched in his chest, and he flinched back, staring about the yard. "Hello?" he said. He felt a touch on his shoulder and jumped in fright, but it was just Clarissa's rope. The end was tied in a loop that brushed the ground, waiting for him to climb on. Quickly, he stepped into the loop and clung onto the line as Clarissa began to yank him up the side of the house. As he rose, he looked down, searching the yard for any other movement, but there was none. The rope scraped over the gutter. "Climb over!" Clarissa called. Fighting the pain in his shoulder, Wild Boy pulled himself onto a wide ledge that framed a sloping attic roof. Clarissa sat close by, her feet flat against a chimney around which she'd pulled the rope. She was out of breath, but she looked pleased with herself. "This is how we do it in the circus," she said, tugging her boots back on. The fog was thinning, offering glimpses along the river. The sleek stone arches of London Bridge in one direction, and in the other, the grim grey bulk of the Tower of London. The fog was confusing, disorientating. It played tricks with your mind. Wild Boy had hoped that was what had just happened in the yard. Clarissa already had her lockpicks out as she tried to open a door in the attic roof. She swore, banged on her fist against the wood. "This is bolted inside too. This house is like a prison. How could the killer have got in and out?" Wild Boy wasn't sure, but he was more and more eager to find out. He sensed that the answer could be the clue they needed to catch the killer, but he couldn't solve it unless they could get inside. "Maybe we could—" Crash! With one powerful kick, Clarissa broke open the door. The crash echoed like thunder around the rooftop. "Got it," she said, grinning. Wild Boy could hardly believe what she'd done. "Are you crazy? The coppers are down there." He rushed to the edge of the roof, but was relieved to hear the police still chatting in the street below. Clarissa pushed the door. "I don't mind it," she said. "Now you better do yours." Sorry for the stumble there and a couple of sentences. I do apologise. So now I'd like you to make me a wanted poster, please, either for Clarissa or for Wild Boy, or if you really want to, you can do one for both.